Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope all of you are fine. Hello and welcome to my English class. Today we are going to take up class 11 textbook of English. I hope my voice is audible, and in case it's not, kindly from your side someone confirm whether I'm audible or not. So our today's topic is portrait of a lady, and it's penned by a legendary novelist of India who goes by the name Khushwant Singh. His name is no less than an announcement when it comes to Indian novelists. Khushwant Singh. Let me tell you something about Khushwant Singh first. Khushwant Singh was an Indian born novelist, and he's popularly known for his famous novel Train to Pakistan, which he had penned in the year 1956. And he's also known as the partition novelists, and he has too many books to his credit. He has written the history of Sikhs, he has written the Train to Pakistan, and then he's definitely known for his greatest short story, A Portrait of a Lady. Khushwant Singh was a very great writer, and he died recently. Khushwant Singh died in the year 2014. So let's have a quick recap of what we did up till now. So it's class meant for class 11. Today's topic, A Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh was one of the greatest Indian novelists who wrote in Indian English literature, and he's popularly known for his famous novel Train to Pakistan that was penned by him in 1956. Apart from this, A Train to Pakistan, he has too many credits to his name. He has written History of Sixth, and he's also very much famous for this very particular short story, A Portrait of a Lady. He died in the year 2014. And now, because we know that the focus of Indian authors has always been to depict the rural life of India, and it has always been to depict the contemporary society of India, which was prevalent after independence in India. As I said, that he's also known as partition novelist. Now, without wasting any further time, we will be taking up the book Hornbill, and as far as this portrait of a lady is concerned, it is a nostalgic story. Nostalgic story means something that has happened in the past and then we remember it in the present. And not only do we remember it in the present, we actually miss it. That particular process is called nostalgia. Say, for example, if you are missing some childhood memories at the moment, if you go along the road and then you see a small kid doing something that you have also done in your childhood, that very particular moment would be called nostalgia. And the stories that revolve around this are called nostalgic stories. And it is a nostalgic story. In this particular story, he talks about his grandmother, and he talks about the grandeur of his grandmother. One is grandmother, and then we have grandeur. Grandeur means greatness, and he talks about how great, how stiff, how strong the ladies in the past used to be. They would be shouldering their entire household, they would be mastering their household, and they would be performing all the daily chores of life with stiffness, with punctuality, and then with a kind of smile they would always wear on their face. He recalls his childhood, and he recalls his grandmother, and he recalls how much she loved him, and he recalls how she was wrinkled. It was actually the circumstances that she had gone through, it was actually the problems that she had faced in her life that had actually aged her. So sometimes we say that people age before age. That means sometimes you will see a particular person who is in his teens, but he looks like old because the circumstances have made him so. So it's not only biological growth is something else and emotional growth is something else. Now here he talks about the emotional growth of a person. If a person is biologically fit and he may old and then he we know that how does he age. But when if you are not emotionally fit, you will look like an old person even in your youth. And now let's take the text, the portrait of a lady. I will be reading the first paragraph. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had been once young and pretty, and had even had a husband. That was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest and looked at least 100 years old. Now, as I told you in the beginning of the lecture, that whenever you read a short story written by an Indian author and then you compare it with a short story written by a foreign author, there is a hell of difference. Why? Because in for Indians, English is a foreign language, and whenever they write, they have Indianized the language. That means they have created a separate form of English, which is called Indian English. And here in Indian English, what you will find, it is the most simple usage of English. And there are so many words of Hindi that have actually been adopted by what we can say English. So, for example, there's a word sindoor. We don't have any word for it in English. So it's actually been adopted by Britishers and actually been adopted by English. So this is called Indianization of language. So whenever you will go through two paragraphs, one paragraph of a short story written by an Indian author and then paragraph of a short story written by any foreign author, you will see that this language, the language adopted by the Indians, it's very simple and lucid. On the other hand, on the contrary, the language adopted by the Britishers or the language adopted by the foreign authors, that is verbose. And let me tell you what verbose is. Verbose is where the usage of difficult words is made use of, where the usage of what we can say idioms, phrases, and quotations is made use of. So that makes actually these English people, that is Britishers, they believe that they are superiors, and that is that aristocratic use of language. Aristocratic use of language. Say, for example, if we talk to our siblings, if we talk to our parents in home, so we use very informal type of language. Then if you go to market, if you go to any shopping mall, you go to any office and you talk to the boss there, so the language would differ here. So definitely, so at different places, our tone and our words differ from each other. So the language that is adopted by the foreign authors it is usually aristocratic type of nature. And here he uses the simple language. What does he say? He says, my grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. So definitely, it's a very common fact that every grandmother is old. You cannot become a grandmother until and unless you are not old. And he says that just like the grandmother of any person there in his vicinity, in his neighborhood was old, his grandmother was old as well. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. And now he says that it's not that she had abruptly gone old. It's not that she had abruptly become old. She had been in this state of health, she had been in this state of presence from the last 20 years the author knows him. That means we can assess from this point that when the author writes this story, he is 20-year old. So that means he's writing about his grandmother in his youth. And he says that it's not that she's old only today. Since the day I was born, she's like this. She's old. Then she had been old and wrinkled. And he says wrinkled. Why wrinkle? Oh, we know when a person gets old, he doesn't remain as graceful and as beautiful as he uses to be in the youth. So that's why there are wrinkles on the face of his grandmother. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband, but that was hard to believe. Now he says that I have heard it from the people that my grandmother was a pretty lady. She was very beautiful. She was very graceful. And not only that, she also had a husband. And now he says that, but that's very hard to believe. Why does he say so? He says so because he had not seen his grandfather. And he does not believe that because he has been seeing his grandmother with a wrinkled face from the last 20 years. So it's very hard to believe for him that she would have been beautiful in the past. So he's not in a position to imagine the youth of his grandmother. My grandmother's portrait, my grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. Yes, Bisma? You can send him many, I think you can send him the link. Wait, yes, wait.